Hello, welcome to video number 31 called Inscribed Angles. This is a new type of angle. This is an angle whose vertex is on the circle instead of on the center. We'll get to those in a minute, but first I just want to do a couple of review problems. So today in class we're talking about central angles, and we have two problems here to help us kind of review this. In the first problem, we want to find the measure of arc RT. RT starts at point R, of course, and goes all the way over here to T. So we want to find the measure of that arc. We know part of it, the 64 degrees is the measure of ST, but we need this other part here. Well, the way we can find it is by realizing this angle has to equal 61, because this arc is 61, the central angle is 61, and since all three of these have to add up to 180, we can do 180 minus 64 and minus 61, which equals 55. So this angle here is 55 degrees. And so I know that this part of the arc is 55, and this part is 64. So finally, I have the two pieces I need to find the measure of arc RT. So the measure of arc RT is 55 plus 64, which is 119 degrees. Okay, so that had a couple steps to it. So sometimes, just like in the angle problems we've been doing, we got to find a few other things first. Okay, let's do our second review problem. I want to find the measure of KGI. KGI is all of this. It starts here and goes all the way around here. Okay, so how do we find that? Well, let's try to find the pieces. Since this angle is 55, this one's vertical with it, so that angle is 55, and this arc is 55. Now I see these two angles together form a linear pair, so they have to add to 180. So this one must be 125, and so this part of the arc is 125. I think I have all the pieces I need. Since this angle is 55, this is 55. So these three pieces combine to find the arc I want, all the way around here. Okay, so let's add them up. So the measure of the arc we want is 125 plus 55 plus another 55, which altogether would be 235, I believe. That's 110? Yeah, so 235. Okay, so the measure of an arc is equal to the measure of the central angle that goes with it. And sometimes we have to put some together. All right, time to learn something new. This is about inscribed angles, and this won't be bad. It's just another type of angle. So right here, I have a drawing from Geometry Sketchpad, a cool little program that allows me to simulate things. So I have an arc here in the thick red, arc ABC, and the arc's not going to change as I go through this problem or this demonstration. The measure of the arc is almost 80. It's 80.03 degrees. The computer is very accurate. And as I move point D around, we see the measure of angle ADC changes. ADC is this angle right here. I'm going to mark right there. So as I move it around, that kind of changes. If I move it close to the arc, it gets really big. If I move it further, it gets smaller. As we know, if I put the vertex right at the center, it's kind of hard to do it perfectly. We should see what we see. The measure of the arc equals the measure of the angle. So if I put it right there at the center, we see that they're both about 80 degrees. Okay, now what happens when I move the vertex to be on the circle? As I move it to be on the circle, we see that the measure of the angle is half the measure of the arc. And that's true anywhere I put it. So if I put it down here on the circle, we see that the measure of the angle is 40 degrees and the measure of the arc is 80 degrees. And if I put it over here, kind of the same thing. It's kind of hard to get it right on the circle, but it's about half. There we go. 39.6 is close to half of 80. So anywhere we put it on here on the circle, it's about half of the arc. Okay, so this brings us to this property. The measure of an inscribed angle is half the measure of the arc. I'm going to pull up my little sketch again. I got a different sketch here. In this sketch, I was able to put the point exactly on the arc. Okay, I mean on the circle. So this time, arc ABC has measure 100, and we see that the measurement of the angle is 50, half of the arc. And it remains the same. It doesn't change. Wherever I move this point around the circle, the measure of the angle stays 50. Whether it's up here, it's 50. Right here, 50 or 50. It didn't budge. That's because anywhere on the circle, it's half of the arc. All right, so enough of that. We're going to go to using it to solve some problems. So first, these are kind of like one-step problems. We just have to fill in the missing measurement. Then we'll do like 2 examples of a little bit more complicated problems. Okay, so in this first example here, I see that the angle is 30 degrees. So remember, the angle is half of the arc. So if the angle is 30, this arc must be 60 degrees. Easy. This angle is 99 degrees. That's half of the arc. So if I multiply it by 2, I get the arc. So if I multiply it by 2, I get 198 degrees. That's the measure of arc MN. All right, on this one, I'm missing the angle. The angle is half of the arc. So half of 164, we're going to divide that by 2. Should give us 82 degrees. And it looks like 82 degrees. It's a little bit less than a right angle. On this one, we have the arc is 160 degrees. The angle is half of that. So it's 80 degrees. Okay. These next 2 problems, a little bit more challenging. They're more challenging just because we have to do a little bit more work to get to the angle, but that's okay. Kind of like a puzzle. So if you like solving puzzles, these are kind of cool. So here, we want to know the measure of this angle here. Well, that would be easy to find if I knew the measure of this arc out here. And we can get that. Remember, all the way around the circle is 360 degrees. So if I subtract these 2 pieces from 360, I get the arc, and then I can get the angle. So I'm going to do 360. I'm going to subtract 85 degrees. And then I'm going to subtract 75 degrees. And I get 200. This is 200 degrees out here. Okay, if that arc's 200 degrees, the angle is half of it. So my answer to this problem is 100 degrees. Okay, cool. Done. All right, let's see what we have here. We want this angle right here. So we need to know this arc out here. It goes from R to Q. That's the arc that's cut off by this angle. Okay, so how can I get that? Well, I know this is 94 degrees, and if this is 58, this arc here, PR, is twice that. This must be 116. Okay, since that's 116, we can figure out this arc. 360 minus 116 minus 94 equals 150. Since that arc's 150, the angle is half of that, 75. There's actually a couple ways to go about this. We could have found this angle up here and then found the angle we wanted also. So there's more than one way. So you just got to start finding arcs that you can find or angles that you can find, and eventually you get to the one you want. Okay, it's journal time. So let's take a look here. We have just 3 problems for you. So I want you to copy the figures in your journal. So sketch the circle and the angle as best you can, and put in what they give you, and find the missing angle and circle it. Okay, so we know which part was the answer. So here you're given the arc, got to find the angle. Here you're given the angle, got to find the arc. That's going to take you about, I would say, 10 seconds. And then here's a little bit more complicated problem where you're going to have to find a couple of things first before you find the measure of that arc. All right, good luck. If you